So now it's time for the Western Wall tunnel tour.
Yeah.
You ready?
I am.
Yeah, so the story here is that for hundreds of years, this was the only, right here, the hotel, the Western Wall, was the only exposed portion of remaining of the original Temple Mount from the time of Herod's temple. So the Jews, come here and mourn over the loss of the temple, etc. But this is about 187 feet long. But the Western Wall is actually quite a bit longer. It's about 1,600 feet long altogether. And when the Jews recaptured the old city in the Temple Mount in 1967, they started excavating along the whole base of the Western Wall. Most of it today is underground because over the centuries, neighborhoods were built on top of it, neighborhood upon neighborhood. So we're going underground to see the rest of the Temple Mount Western Wall. You're rocking that kit, dude.
Yeah.
Let's go, buddy.
It's staying on. It's like, I don't know how, it's like suction cup to my head.
I could use a haircut on mine.
For those of you who just now came, you can come and stand to my right as well in the room.
Okay,
just make sure you can actually see this model. So, my two questions are, what exactly is the Western Wall? And my second question is, what exactly are the tunnels of the Western Wall? Because I just said, welcome to the Western Wall tunnels. To answer my question, I'm going to use the model in front of me and the screen behind me. This model shows us the topography of Jerusalem. I mean, the hills, valleys, and mountains. Let's say this is how Jerusalem looked like about 5,000 years ago. Nothing else than hills, mountains, and valleys. About 3,000 years ago, to this small portion of land, arrives King David. He conquers this place and establishes his own city we call the City of David. Now, if this is the City of David, so directions are you're standing at the north, east, south, and west, all looking upon ancient Jerusalem. His son, King David's son, HaMelech Shlomo, climbs the peak of this mountain, and here he decides to build the first temple. This mountain is called in Hebrew Har HaMoriah, Mount Moriah. Connecting this exact location, ancient tradition connects this exact place to the story that we are told in the book of Genesis, the binding of Isaac. When God tells Abraham, no human sacrifice, the whole story in this location. Another interesting thing about the peak of this mountain is a stone we call in Hebrew Even Hashtiyah, the foundation stone, connecting this place to the foundation of the world. And in this exact location, the first temple was built. Kodesh HaKodeshim, the Holy of Holies, the Ark of the Covenant. For about 400 years, the temple stands here until the Babylonians come to Jerusalem. They conquer Jerusalem and destroy the first temple, sending quite a few of the families to exile. Willing to come back to this exact place and rebuild the second temple. And as we know, 70 years after the destruction of the first temple, the construction of the second one. The destruction of the first temple, for those of you who like precise dates, 586 BCE, before Common Era. Coming back here 70 years after building the second temple. One of the books that deals with this story, with that period of time, is the book of Ezra. If you open up the Bible in the book of Ezra, it'll tell us about coming back from Babylon, establishing, rebuilding the second temple. But one interesting thing about this story is that the old people that came back were, of course, very happy to rebuild this place, but they were also very, very sad. And why is that? Why were they sad?
They didn't have the funds to build it to the former glory.
Exactly so. That's why the old people were sad, because the old people remembered how things looked like. And comparing the temple, the second temple, they were able to build to what they remembered made them sad. But as we know, throughout time, things did change. The construction of the temple, renovations were done. The temple was extended. But the biggest change in the history of Temple Mount, the second temple period, happened about 2,050 years ago. And by the time from now we just started, I saw quite a few people came, so please open up a bit further, make sure everybody can actually see. open up in this room. You can also open up the circle. Make sure everybody can see this place because about 2,050 years ago, Hamelech Holdus arrives and he wants to rebuild, to renovate the second temple just like this in the peak of Mount Moriah. Quite a few people talked about this guy, King Herod. Quite a few books were written. Quite a few people argued about that person. Was he good? Was he bad? All kinds of different opinions. But everybody agreed that Herod was the great builder par excellence in Israel. And he will never ever do unstable things. What's this? Is this stable? Mm-hmm. Not at all. Now, if Herod wants to change the whole temple, he won't just stick it on the peak of Mount Moriah, he'll change the whole surface of the mountain. That's why he chops the northwestern side of the hill. And with arches, huge arches, he covers this part and this part and this part. And he creates a huge, big platform just like this. And on the top of this great platform, Hamelech Holdus is able to renovate the second temple. 144,000 square meters, this huge big platform, and in the middle, the temple itself, 50 meters height, all covered with marble stone, and a golden crown around it. Meaning, if you did not see the construction, the renovation that was done by King Herod, you did not see a beautiful building. That's what people told. That's what our sages told us back in those days. People living in Jerusalem, look at this place. Looking at the temple, looking at Temple Mount, seeing, they talked about seeing a snowed mountain. You have to understand, 50 meters height construction is quite big comparing it to old times. If you go outside, see the impressive building of the Dome of the Rock, it's 20 meters height, multiplied by 2.5, and 2,000 years ago, from all around the region, we were able to see this, the temple, the second temple. And the second temple, the plaza, is surrounded by 4 walls. This is the northern wall, the eastern wall, the southern wall. What's this?
Western Wall.
Exactly so. So just now we all answered my first question. What exactly is the Western Wall? One of 4 retaining walls surrounding Temple Mount. Well, by answering my first question, we have to ask another one. Because if the Western Wall is only a retaining wall, meaning just to support the plaza, so what is so special about it, especially if we have 3 others? This is from the south, east, the northern wall, and back to the western wall we're talking about right now. So if it's one of 4 retaining walls, what is so special about it? How come it's the most famous? Answer to my question, we'll be able to understand a bit more if we just fly for a moment to the top of Temple Mount and see that the Western Wall itself, this is the Western Wall, is the closest to this place, as you said, the Holy of Holies, connecting us to the binding of Isaac, to the foundation stone, to the Ark of the Covenant. Throughout the Torah, we get to a place called opposite the Holy of Holies. We'll stand exactly here, opposite this place, 100 meters. We'll be standing 100 meters westwards from the location of the Holy of Holies. And maybe one of the reasons why the Western Wall is, although it's a retaining wall, we have 3 others, is by the fact it's the closest. From one side to the other of the Western Wall, we have about 500 meters. Precisely 488 meters, 1,600 feet. But if you go outside to the open plaza, you'll be able to see only 57 meters, about 185 feet. That means only about 1/9 of the Western Wall. How come we cannot see the entire length? The half a kilometer, the 1,600 feet. We have to continue with the history of Jerusalem to understand what happened. About 2,000 years ago, the Romans come to Jerusalem, conquered Jerusalem, and destroyed the second temple. The year 70 AD, the destruction of the second temple by the Romans. For quite some time, this place was empty. As you can see, the destruction of the temple itself, and also the retaining walls were ruined. But only the upper layers of the walls were pushed down. The lower layers survived in all sides. That means until today, if you go outside to the open plaza of the Western Wall, count the first 7 layers of stones, are dated back in time to Herod's period. 2,000 years ago, they take you back in time 2,000 years ago. So the lower parts survived, but the upper parts of the walls fell. And of course, the temple itself was ruined. For quite some time, this place was empty, but the biggest change in the history of Jerusalem happened about 1,300 years ago when the Muslims arrived to Jerusalem, and a guy we call Khalif Abd al-Malik builds this place. What do we call it?
Dome of the Rock.
The Dome of the Rock, exactly. Why is this place called the Dome of the Rock?
It's built over the foundation stone.
The same foundation stone, the same rock, is also important for the Muslims. That's right, 691, building this dome exactly above the rock, the stone, foundation stone. About 700 years ago, for different reasons, the people that lived in Jerusalem really wanted to build their houses as closest as they can to the Western Wall. But there's a valley splitting between the Temple Mount and where you're standing, which is the western side of Jerusalem. The whole valley, so they didn't want to build their houses in the valley, so what did they do? They built arches, and upon those arches, they built their houses, and this is what we get. The whole valley is, just be careful for a moment with your hands, thank you. The whole valley is covered with houses, and the entire length of the Western Wall was covered. Let's see how I'm with the screen for a moment. The whole valley was covered with houses. I'll stop this for a moment because I would like you to notice one interesting fact. The technique that they used to support the houses was by arches. You can actually see building the arches, and on top of the arches they built their houses. Now, it's important for us to understand the arches we can see that support the houses of today are the tunnels of the Western Wall. Meaning nobody ever built the tunnels 700 years ago, but by the fact that these houses were supported by the arches meant that straight after 1967, when Jerusalem was reunited, we were coming back to this place, and one of the ideas was maybe we can reveal the enchanting history by digging under the houses, connecting between the arches, and the tunnels were created just like that. And this is what we get. The familiar picture of Jerusalem covered with houses, and this is the open plaza of the Western Wall we all know about. As I said, about 185 feet. 57 meters of open plaza, another 81 meters of the southern part of the Western Wall, and 350 meters, about 1,185 feet, that are covered with houses until today. So where are we located right now? Let's kill for a moment the houses and see. We all entered this passage. We walked through this passage past the first room, second room, third room, and we entered the fourth room. This is where we are right now. Soon we're going to go outside this room, take a left turn, walking through this passage, continuing until we get to the Western Wall. We get to the Western Wall and walk northwards, nearly until the end of it. Just look a moment upon your heads. Just look a moment upwards. We are right now under houses, but exactly to be precise, those arches, these strange rooms are actually arches. 1, 2, 3, 4 arches connecting the one side of Jerusalem all the way to Temple Mount. And actually, it's connected to this great bridge. We are now under one of those arches. The great bridge that helped people walk from one side to the other. We're going to go outside one of those arches, continue walking right next to the bridge, and go under a big arch. We'll get to the Western Wall, continue walking northwards, and just one more thing that will help us understand where we got to. By the end of the tour, we'll get to a place called the Stutyon Pool. I'd like to show you that because it's going to be easy for us to understand where we get to by looking at this screen to just remember it. At the northwestern side, you can all see this strange pool. We're going to go all the way right next to the Western Wall, leave the Western Wall, enter an ancient aqueduct, and get to this place. But believe me, quite a lot to see before we get there. That's right.
I forgot to ask him if we're going to talk about the Warren's Gate incident, but we'll find out. Otherwise, I'll talk about it.
Sounds good.
The reason they have that, the women's section inside, is that there's they built a synagogue down there. So there's a men's section, yeah. So now there's actually a synagogue down there that's as close as they can get to the Holy of Holies. And he's going to show us the spot.
We are now under foundations of houses that covered the valley about 700 years ago. Upwards about 700 years ago. We're going to go now down a few steps, and 2,000 years in time.
Going back 2,000 years in time. Cool. Time travel.
Okay, so for the first time, go back to the Western Wall itself. This is the Western Wall behind me. Interestingly enough, we're now opposite the Western Wall, opposite the biggest stone that was found in excavations in Israel. And when I mean the biggest stone, I mean the following details. The original height of the stone, from one side, this is the beginning of the stone, all the way to the original height. Can you see above this huge stone? Another 3 small stones, and then above another big stone? The original height, from one side to the other. The length of the stone is
43 feet?
40.5 feet.
Oh.
13 point.
Good guess.
That was nearly accurate. 13.6 meters. Just to emphasize how big this stone is. What's your name?
Ryan.
Right. Can you go until you see the connection to one stone?
Yeah. So
Continue,
all the way to the
continue.
end?
Further. Can you see connect exact right there?
Right here. Yep.
And what's your name? From Ryan till Abayat, one huge big stone, 13.6 meters. Yeah, thank you very much. And the assumption, this stone weighs about 570 tons. 570 tons. And we have to understand one more thing just before we continue. They did not pick up this stone 1 meter above the ground. We are now 13 meters above the bedrock itself, meaning back in ancient times, the street itself was quite a few meters under us. They had to pick it up about 13 meters and then stick it here in this location. Any questions?
Yeah, how they do it.
So how do they actually do that? Later on now we'll see a short film that will help us understand the different techniques that they use to convey stones from one place to the other.
Are you going to talk about the Warren's incident in 1981?
No, I'm not talking about it. If you have a question,
Okay,
if
so
you
I
have
can
a
bring it
question,
up?
you can if you want.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Every question you have, you can finish. I usually don't talk about it. You can ask. You can
Okay. Yeah, we'll bring it up.
Make sure to see the screen.
standing at the point closest to the site of the Holy of Holies on the Temple Mount. So this is as close as we can get to where the Holy of Holies was. So about 100 meters, the guy said, to our east is the Dome of the Rock, what's this called? Which is maternal burning oil lamp that symbolizes the menorah and the temple and the eternal fire on the holy altar. And this site opposite of the Holy of Holies, but very cool.
That meant that every house had a space somewhere. So some of the people said, why not use this space? And they did. Some of these houses decided to make it this way.
That's what the Cubby means.
So, the other things that are now seeds with the broken out.
There's some more stones that were cast down when the Romans destroyed the temple in 70 AD. Just like Jesus said would happen. Look at that. That's all the way down to the Herodian street level. Oh, all the way down. Tight squeeze. Oh, it's a nice Trothian pool. Antonia Fortress. Trothian pool, I believe.
We have just now got to the pool we mentioned earlier in the introduction. I showed you it was a pool at the northwestern side of Temple Mount. I told you, please memorize the picture. Northwestern side of Herod's construction, of the Temple Mount, the pool itself, called the Stution. When Herod came and he extended Temple Mount, he ruined the fortress itself and did not need the aqueduct anymore. So the guy told him, "The whole aqueduct, what should you do with this?" And he decided to build this pool, gather the water, and maybe to use this water for the new fortress that was built to the northwestern side of the Temple Mount, that he called it the Antonian Fortress.
So we're going to like ditch the group and we're headed back to Warren's Gate for another quick look, just for fun. Feel the water coming down.
I know. Felt it coming out here too. It's funny how it cut in between certain areas and then went around certain areas.
Yeah.
And left things like this up, which aren't rock. You can tell there's some in the back of there.
Yeah, I know. It looks like new filler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like look at that. Yeah, totally.
That looks like a bowl or a plate or
Yeah, so
something.
it's almost like these were like holes that went under the Temple Mount, and they filled them because probably related to the Warren's Gate.
Yeah, they didn't want to
talk about the meeting. Yeah. Don't want to take a chance of anyone digging underneath the Temple Mount, because that's produced bad results in the recent past. Watch your head. You're tall. At least it's padded.
Yeah.
Oh, this feels good on my dad.
I like how these signs say "Do not enter danger,"
Ooh, yeah.
and we walk through there.
Right? Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that before. do not enter danger, and survived.
So why didn't they come, since they were going to tear up houses
They
anyway?
were in the mode at the moment.
Yeah.
You know
Why
what? You're
didn't
right. They
do
could
it
have.
this side?
Right. I mean, the Western Wall Plaza, where that is, that part of the Western Wall, that 187 feet, I think it is. Yeah, was already opened up. So there is just a matter of taking down some houses. Here, we're something like 30, 40 feet. I think at least 30 feet below street level.
Yeah.
So this just would have taken a whole lot more work. I think eventually they would have done it, but they chickened out. They backed off from the fact that they had a victory and they settled with it for the little stretch of Western Wall. But at least they've dug all this up since then. So, and here's a little prayer area at least. So this is the spot, right? Where it says Holy Homes.
Right.
Oh no, this is Warren's Gate.
Well, this is Warren's Gate.
Okay.
Holy is right there.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back at Warren's Gate, and earlier in the video I asked our tour guide to tell the story about this, and toward the end of our tour I stepped aside with him, and we actually had a private talk, super cool guy, but it turns out that he doesn't really know the whole story, and he said that what the policy here is of the Western Wall Foundation is to just avoid any topics that are potentially kind of rife with conflict and controversy, and this one definitely is. Warren's Gate is the site of an actually very famous incident that occurred back in 1981. I think it was June of 1981, which coincidentally was the same month that Spielberg's movie Raiders of the Lost Ark was released. Hit the silver screen in the summer of that year about the same time. And that movie, of course, was about Indiana Jones going after the Lost Ark of the Covenant. Well, at Warren's Gate at that exact same time, there were two rabbis. One was Rabbi Shlomo Warren, who was the chief rabbi of Israel, and the other was Rabbi Yehuda Getz, who was the chief rabbi of Western Wall. And these guys were very serious, very zealous, and they wanted to see the third temple built and see the Jewish temple rebuilt. So when the archaeologists uncovered Warren's Gate here, this was actually all opened up. And what it actually is, it's a tunnel that goes straight back in and then turns up to the right up some steps up onto the Temple Mount platform. Just like our tour guide said, it was the closest gate to the Holy of Holies, very close to the temple itself up there, and then the visitors, or the worshipers would, walk on to enter the temple complex. But so these two rabbis in 1981, they thought, we're going after what else, the Ark of the Covenant, because if you want to get to it, this might be a good place to start. I mean, it was a tunnel, so they would have had, some trouble breaking through the wall at the end of it. But so they're digging in, and I'm not even quite sure how long this all went on, but eventually the Muslim Waqf, the Muslim authorities, who again didn't allow the remaining control on the Temple Mount itself, they heard it at nighttime, they heard clanging, so they knew something was going on inside the Temple Mount. So big no-no. So they broke down through, confronted the rabbis. They ended up summoning a bunch of. This is the story I've heard of. They ended up summoning a bunch of youth from East Jerusalem, Palestinians. Brought them in, the rabbis in response, went and got a bunch of kids from a local yeshiva. Full-on brawl broke out, and there were no deaths involved in that incident. It was a major brawl. So the Israeli police came in, and they immediately shut the whole attempt down, and they sealed this wall. And this is why this is modern construction here. This is just modern cement. This is a very quick job, but they sealed this thing off. They don't want anyone going in there because it's just way too explosive. What's cool about the story is that so in the middle of the night, Rabbi, it was either Gord or Guess, I'm not sure which one, but he made a phone call to a guy named Gershon Solomon, who had founded in 1967, actually captured the Temple Mount and everything in the city. Gershon Solomon created this organization called the Temple Mount Faithful, who, just like the Temple Institute, are heavily involved in trying to promote the rebuilding of the Jewish temple, and they kind of have their own angle on it. But he called Gershon up and he said, Gershon, your dream is about to come true. And Gershon Solomon rushed down here and he was actually involved in this situation. I'm not quite sure to what extent or what the full story is, but I think we're going to find out tomorrow night, because tomorrow night Vernon and I actually have an interview with Gershon Solomon himself. The other two rabbis are actually deceased now, but Gershon is still alive, and he's agreed to meet with us at his office in West Jerusalem. So it should be a great interview, so stay tuned for that, and some good stuff coming up. Okay, one quick fix on my little spiel there, and I knew this, but I zoned for a second there. But yeah, this gate was actually discovered in 1867 by Sir Charles Warren, who was a famous archaeologist, British archaeologist working here. So it was not discovered after 1967. It was discovered 100 years earlier in 1867. So there's my fix. So now we're exiting out the Western Wall tunnels into the Muslim quarter. Stories are going to come out on the Via Dolorosa. Of all places. Isn't that cool?
It's like that, but left and then right. And then
Garbage can?
what?
Do you have a garbage can?
Garbage? Use garbage.
Thank you.
Enjoy in the tunnel.
Thanks, guys. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, we took the tour too, but then went back and hung around and stuff. But yeah, excellent. Very cool. So we're on the Via Dolorosa now, right?
Then
Okay.
then I wrote down.
Excellent. We're in the Armenian Christian store on the Via Dolorosa. What's your name again? Herod, right?
Herod.
Like King Herod.
Yes.
And he's trying to sell Vernon a magic carpet. Looks like one of my
What's special
favorite.
about this color? Why they
And I bought a coin for Aaron
touch it?
in this shop, so fingers crossed that it's legit, but we'll find out. But yeah, some cool stuff in here.
The way we get it.
So this guy says that he's an authorized antiquities dealer for the state of Israel, and again, you know, we hear stories. Never know.
The first time here?
No, I was hearing.
That seems like a cool guy, and looks like pretty legitimate stuff. And I was able to talk him down on the coin. And so I think I'm happy. Okay, so Herod,
Yes, sir.
still in Herod's store. Tell me the story about your wall again here.
You're looking here about the foundation of the Antonian fortress, Pilatus Palace, where they condemned our Lord. This is the bedrock. And what's special also, this is the north wall of the Temple Mount.
Right.
It's considered also part from Mount Moriah, where Abraham sacrificed his son Isaac. And this is the only place where you can see the original part, because most of the north wall of the Temple Mount, it's inside the Muslim quarter, and it's hiding by Mamluki building. But since we are Armenian and we are authorized from the museum, so we get the opportunity to do digging and to build this. So
Okay.
today you can see the real natural north wall.
Nice. So this officially makes your store the coolest store in the old city.
Thanks,
So I like it. All right, man. Thanks, bud. Ready to head back?
Yeah, I am.
So down the Via Dolorosa we go. Back home. Muslim call to prayer.
Hi, how are you, sir? Last one of the day, this needs. Check this one out, thank you.
Não sandal.
Hey. Just thinking about converting to Islam.
No.
You're inspired by the music. Come on, man. Admit it.
No. Not at all. Watch out.
Oh, excuse me.